let's try to take a stab at trying to explain this number on Devin Booker. Why so many people have, hit him at 20-1. He's getting 13% of the handle. That is the second highest amount behind Nikola Jokic. And I get it. Devin Booker is a walking bucket. He can post some really outlandish stat lines when it comes to points. But where I think the big men have the upper hand is when you think of MVP, don't you think of somebody who affects the game in multiple ways? I think that's where it ends for Devin Booker with me. Like maybe the assists will be there, but how do you go against somebody who is a walking triple double in Nikola Jokic? Because you've got to remember Nikola Jokic is a big man, but he's also one of the most skilled passers in the entire league. So that's where I think I don't really buy into Devin Booker. I don't think he can affect the game like some of these big men can.
Well, and I also think you make really good points. I also think that the MVP gets voted on. And so when it's voted on by humans who have built-in biases towards people or how they think the game should be played or how teams should be constructed, you can't ignore the fact that the Suns have gone out and gotten Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal the last year and a half to accentuate Devin Booker. That Devin Booker, I don't think by a lot of basketball fans across the NBA is looked at as a guy who can do it on his own. He's got to have great supporting pieces around him. And that's in complete contrast to, again, not to take anything away from Jamal Murray, but it's in complete contrast to Jokic in Denver, who I think a lot of NBA fans look at and say, well, Denver is Denver because of Jokic. I don't know if anybody looks at the Suns and says the Suns are the Suns because of Devin Booker. He's a part of it. Yeah, absolutely. He's a really important part of it. But especially when you go out and get Durant and Beal over the last year and a half, that's telling you, yeah, he's part of it, but he's not the reason for it. And voters think that way.
I think the final word from me on MVP is that you're right. There is a human element. And it feels, looking back at last year, they almost gave it to Joel Embiid, not because he had a great season. He did, but also because he hadn't won it, and it felt like he deserved it at some point. And they're like, okay, this is the year for Joel Embiid. But let's look at the props world, because I do think maybe there are a couple of things worth at least your consideration if you think the spread is too high. I'm going to look at Dalton Kincaid here, just because when you have an injury on a roster to somebody who gets quite a bit of the target share, you look and you say, okay, where are those targets going to go? So Dawson Knox, a tight end. Let's go to the next guy, who's the tight end. Dalton Kincaid, a tight end as well. And last week, we saw what he could do when he gets those targets. Had a career high or a season high 8 targets last week, and he delivered. Had a season high 75 receiving yards. So his line set at 37.5. I think maybe it's gone up to 38.5 in some spots. I still like it. This is definitely a gettable number for somebody who I think will get more targets in this game simply because Dawson Knox is out. And just from a passing perspective, it feels like most of the yards are going to come through the air for the Buffalo Bills, a team that generally wants to throw the ball, Anyways, the matchup also suggests it because the Bucs are great against the run, but give up the 6th most passing yards to opposing quarterbacks. So I think you take a look at the passing game for the Buffalo Bills and you start there. So I'll go Dalton Kincaid. Mac, do you like a certain player here?
Yeah, I think I like the idea. I mean, like I said, I don't like it for Bills fans for the offensive game plan, the idea of tunneling in and honing in on Stephon Diggs. But I think the offense is going to find its way there because of the amount that Tampa Bay likes to blitz. Up almost 40% of the time they like to blitz. I think when you're looking for somebody who Josh Allen is comfortable with, aside from Dawson Knox, who you point out is out, yeah, there was some chemistry there last week with Dalton Kincaid, but I look at Stephon Diggs and I like both. It's a big number, 6.5 for his receptions prop. It's juiced as well, all the way to minus 145, but I like the over on Diggs receptions and Diggs receiving yards. 86.5 is a big number also, but I think I like both of those. I think this is an opportunity for Stephon Diggs to maybe find some of that chemistry that that people questioned about he and Josh Allen in the offseason. I think if you're Allen and you are getting blitzed and he does play well against the blitz, it's not just standard 4-man pressure, you're looking for someone to get the ball out quickly to, Diggs, you can count on being open more often than not, or you can throw him open. So I think it's a big Allen to Diggs night. I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing for the Buffalo offense as a whole, but I think that's what we'll see tonight because of the way the Buccaneers defense will funnel it.
Do you think this race starts and ends with Patrick Mahomes? I think the sabotage factor is he's not really putting up the numbers that you kind of associate with an MVP award winner. Because yes, I think we can all agree he's the best quarterback in the NFL. But that's not how the MVP award works. You have to have stats that fly off the page. Like most years, it's like a quarterback that has 50 touchdowns or something combined. I think that's what it was when Cam Newton won it, rushing and passing combined. Do you think Patrick Mahomes can put up good enough numbers to secure the MVP?
I think he can, and I think it's about that time of year when it starts to happen. Because if you look at their schedule, you pointed out Baltimore's schedule and how it benefits or does not benefit, maybe depending on how you're looking at it, with a couple of division games sitting off on the horizon too, the Lamar Jackson MVP market. Listen to this Chiefs schedule. Okay, they're going to Denver this weekend. That is what it is. It's Denver. Patrick Mahomes may not have to have a huge game for them to blow out the Broncos. Or it could look like it looked in the first half against the Chargers, right? So the ones that get me are the following week in Germany against the Dolphins, and then the following week from that when they get the Eagles on Monday Night Football. Those are the ones that I look at after the bye, I should say. They get them on Monday Night Football. Those are the ones I look at and say, okay, Patrick Mahomes rises to the occasion more often than not. By week, what are we in? Week 8 now? By week 11 or 12, we'll know if Patrick Mahomes is starting to cement his MVP candidacy. And how do we expect the number to move between now and then? I think it comes down because they'll beat the Broncos, okay? That's good for Patrick Mahomes' MVP candidacy. And then I think you'll get Mahomes rising to the against Miami and Philly. And because of all of that, I think now may be the time to jump on Mahomes if you didn't already.
Also, I think that Chiefs-Dolphins game will be big for the MVP award because when you have those two guys squaring off, whoever wins that game, if you think it's the Chiefs, I think that is a big statement when you take down or, if you take down the Miami Dolphins, because so far it seemed like the Dolphins put up massive numbers against really bad teams, but when they face good defenses, sometimes it's not necessarily the case. So that will be a big game for both Patrick Mahomes and Tua's MVP candidacy.
Guess who's figuring some things out? Guess who was left for dead by a lot of us after last season? But they've got their quarterback back, and the quarterback's looking pretty good. He's a dark horse Heisman candidate. And guess who upset Texas earlier this season in the Red River rivalry? It's Oklahoma. And Brett Venables has figured something out in Oklahoma. I wasn't counting on it. I was one of those people that left the Sooners for dead about halfway through the season last year, and I didn't think getting Dylan Gabriel back would be what they needed. It's been exactly what they've needed, and I do believe in him as a dark horse Heisman candidate. Now that seems to have opened up a bit, Caleb Williams has fallen off the radar. Michael Penix Jr. had a less than stellar game last week. That market is kind of wide open, I want to say. And if you're looking for somebody a little farther down the board, I do like Gabriel. And I do like Oklahoma to start inserting themselves into the playoff conversation this week by handling Kansas 9.5. I think they win by double digits. They've had hiccups offensively, but they always seem to get it done in the end. And I do think Oklahoma covers against Kansas this week.